Hello there. In this video we're in the next stages of our UX UI journey, and we're going to dive into turning the UX UI assets into something real that we can use. So let's get straight to it. So in this video is a follow-up to the first video in this series, and in fact, I never intended it to be a series, but it's kind of turned into one. So the challenge I've got is I wanted to make it real, and I wanted to turn what I said in the previous video into something that people could use. And three things are happening at the minute. I'm working on 3 bits of software, and I'm working with this lady who's also wanting to get her own app designed. So there's quite a few things going on around the tech side of things. And this is where we like to try and find assets, software, things that can speed up our life, make our life easier, make design beautiful without having to try too hard, etc. So I had a conversation with my clients, and they happened to send me a screenshot of some layouts and designs that they quite liked for some software as a service template that they'd happened to stumble across online, and we're going to show you that in a minute. And that has now snowballed into a whole pathway, and I just thought, right, I'm in the middle of this pathway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this with you as a sort of add-on to the first video. So it's going to be slightly sporadic, also probably going to be a slightly long video, but stick with me because I think there's some really good useful things in here. So let's now go and see what this client sent me, and then what my thinking was and what I've done with that asset in order to help all of the projects that I'm working on. So here we go. So first of all, this is what the client sent me, a little screenshot of this mock-up. And I quite liked it, and he sent me actually a couple of these, and I quite liked it, and I emailed him straight back, and I was like, yes, I love it, this will work really, really well. It's a really clean layout for the software that we're building for him. And I sort of latched onto it quite quickly because I could see the potential of this layout. So then the question is, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to go and create this all myself? Absolutely not. So then it got me thinking, I really need to communicate this to everyone. There are so many assets out there. There's free stock photography, free videos, free audio, and there's tons of free templates and all of those things. But there's also a level of paid templates, and you do get what you pay for. So this is a paid template, and I googled Philo, and it turned up on a website called Envato Market. Now, Envato Market used to be ThemeForest. We can see at the top here it says themeforest.net, and they have tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff, things that you can do to improve and speed up your digital world. And the other thing is, which I didn't mention in the previous video, is there are also thousands of people out there on websites like Fiverr.com. I'll link all these things down below, freelancer.com.co.uk, and you can Upwork, all of these websites where you can actually get other people to do it. But the main essence for this video series is so that you are in a situation to at least be able to brief these people to as granular detail as possible yourself. So here we go, right? Now, I mentioned in the last video that there was a piece of software called Figma. And Figma's great for doing user interface designs. I love it. It's great. It's one of the bits of software that most of the developers I happen to know work with, and you can just buy this for $14. Okay, so I mean, $14 is literally, even if you're on minimum wage in the UK, it's an hour and 10 minutes of your time. I mean, you're going to save tens and 20 hours just not having to do all this work yourself. So immediately I've gone in and I've purchased this straight away. No not even a thought to it, because this is going to save me lots of time. But one of the great things, and I want you to stick with me on this video, is not just what I didn't just download this and go, oh, I don't know, it's done. It's never as easy as that. What I'm going to show you is some of the thought process that I'm going through, because I'm working in the dev side of things as well, of what I'm doing and how I'm utilizing this design and taking the principles of it and then making it work beyond that. So the other thing I wanted to quickly sidetrack onto before we come back to this is the essence of wireframing. Now, many moons ago, when we used to do wireframing, I created a document, and in that document I created a structure to use for wireframing. So I basically copied what was in Balsamiq at the time, and I'll quickly explain this first before we get into what I've done with the Philo template. So I've just quickly saved this out, and I've called it Wireframe Assets Landing Page. So created a new page. Now, I'm not expecting you to necessarily worry about this, but in reality what I did was I created a whole bunch of columns. Now, in the development world for websites, there's a thing called Bootstrap, and Bootstrap is a structure framework along with colors and sizes and buttons and all sorts of things. It's fantastic. Millions of websites use Bootstrap, and so it's a 12-column structure. There is some out there which are 16 columns, but 12 is a great number because it's divisible by 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, etc. So what we have is a series of columns and a series of boxes that make up those columns. And then I've just got some dummy text in here, just some lorem ipsum. You can always get dummy text off a website called lipsum.com. And there's some other things in there. So we've got a little video mock-up and all of those things. So what I want to do very quickly is, in this blank page here, as it were, just do a very quick landing page, as it were, right? So let's just quickly take this here. I'm not going to worry too much, right? So, but we want it centralized, so we're going to quickly drag that to there. Now, what we're going to do here is, you can see that this is a size that sits within the column widths there, right? But if we were doing a design, we may actually do that on the basis that we would have some kind of margin. But for us at the minute, we're doing wireframe, so we just want to block things out on the page. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. That's for the designers to then do that. And we can see in here, I've got my numbers. I will try and zoom in there. If I just drag this across here, you can see, so that needs to be 380 pixels wide. So that is the width of our logo, and it's perfectly nicely centered on the page. So what we can then do is I can just quickly grab a text box, type the word logo in it. Let's get that font size up. Okay. Let's just use something really simple like Arial or something. We want as little design in some ways as possible, because we don't want to be telling the designers what to do. We want to let them do their work if you're at this stage. So often with smaller website projects, I jump straight into almost like mock-up stroke design straight away. That's because we're working on smaller projects, 5, 10, 15, 20,000 pound projects. If you're working on, with a very small team, if you're working on a larger project, £50,000, £100,000 project, larger team, maybe a testing team somewhere, and multiple people within the client that need to sign things off, you need to be doing it in iterative, small stages. And wireframing is a great way to do that, without, so you're not providing design, and people can focus on the functionality of the page, the flow, the user experience, everything, rather than worrying, oh, I don't like that pink button there. That's irrelevant at this stage. It's like, what's going to happen and why. So then we're probably going to have some introductory text or something on our landing page. Imagine this is a landing page with some kind of product, and once again we're going to make sure it aligns up here, probably to there, and I will tweak the width to 980. So we've got, you know, there's a standard structure to this, and we probably don't need all that much text. And I might just center it just to show that we're kind of where we're heading. Now let's just think we might need some it's either, I think it's that one. So let's just imagine that with this landing page we've got maybe like a 3 video series. That's a really popular funnel to have. Just correct that. Let's go. Just converted it actually from InDesign into Affinity. So there we go. So we've got 3 images in there. Now you could have an actual image icon, but what I tend to do is just, you know, that's the block of activity, and then so promo image 1, and then maybe even to say start journey or something, just so, you know, everybody knows what's going on. And then we might just pop that in there, and decide, you know, so often in the previous video I did say, look, put some orange blobs next to something with a number in it and then have some text by the side, but you can actually annotate things in the boxes, as it were. So promo image to you know, do something, because we're taking people on a journey. Often there's a sort of three video or 3 structured funnel. Okay, so that's looking good. And then we're going to have our sales video, our sales letter video, as people call it, where we take people from stage 1. Where are they now? Why are they in pain? You know, what pain are we solving, as it were? So you can find out. And we're going to drop that into the page. Now we might decide that we want this to be massive in the middle, and we could make this that big. There we go. Oops. So we'll make that 980. I've just got my width box off the screen, so it's just over there, and that fits on our thing. So then we might have some more text, and we might have a call to action button, and this is how we build up wireframes. Great. So, but I said I like to jump one step ahead, and I tend to work with smaller teams, smaller budgets. We're doing stuff quite lean. We haven't really got the budget to do all of this scoping and wireframing and then reviewing, and so we kind of jump straight in. And I like to do what we call nifty development, really, which is where you're in constant contact with the client backwards and forwards. You're not waiting for a scrum or 2 weeks to do some kind of presentation every 2 weeks or something like that. That we're kind of just working as we go. So we work really closely with clients like that. And so then what I did was I took this from this Philo thing, and I cracked it open, and I'm now going to in order to get started. So what I'm going to do is this, and close it down, try and keep things as clean as possible. So I wanted to do this design in Affinity Publisher, and there's lots of reasons why I like doing that. I love the Affinity suite, as I said in the previous video, and I wanted to utilize Affinity. I find it very nifty to work in Affinity, and I wanted to do that for speed, really. We're under quite a lot of tight deadlines. I don't want to really have to mess about in stuff that I don't know. So what I did was I downloaded the Philo. I paid my $14 and I downloaded the Photoshop things. Now the great thing about Affinity is that you can just crack open Photoshop files and load them into Affinity Photo. So that was great. got hold of them into Affinity Photo and saved. Now I'm after the light ones. There are some dark ones, but we wanted the light versions. So I won't bother wasting your time with that. I opened them up in Affinity Photo, and then what I did, because the Affinity suite is so good, I can then just open that Affinity Photo file in Affinity Publisher and then save it out as Affinity Publisher file. I mean, it's that easy. It's brilliant. So then what I wanted to do, as I explained earlier in the video, I've got 4 projects going on, and I'm looking at this design and I'm thinking I really would like to use this, because it's just, you know, it's software, right? So it doesn't have to be, just has to be on brand and neat and tidy. And these pieces of software that I'm working on could all benefit from utilizing a really nice framework. Now, the other thing is, and I don't want to get too technical, but within within what we're going to develop these pieces of software, we're going to kind of move away from Bootstrap. We're just going to try and go as lean as possible, as fast as possible, and we're going to use something called Flex and CSS Grid, but mainly Flexbox. So what I then did is also I wanted to get these into a sort of generic state where I could work on them and recolor them rather rapidly, and that's where Affinity Publisher comes in. I'm going to quickly show you what I've done there. Right, so we have these files, and you can see that I've got 2 here which say colored. Okay, so I'm going to crack open the files in Affinity Publisher, and you'll see that I've got one here called Project Colored and Dashboard Colored. So this is, now I've done work to these files. What work have I done? So I'm going to drag in the swatches thing here. So first of all, I went through the whole document. I zoomed around the whole document. This is the dashboard file, and I just found every single little piece of stuff, and I created a swatch within the Affinity Publisher. So we're going to go into swatches, and I created a swatch called Uber App Purple. Now it's purple because the Philo template came in purple, so there's no other reason than that. And I'm not expecting everybody to do what I've done. I'm just showing that I'm thinking about this beyond this one project. I'm actually thinking about how can I utilize this for multiple projects. So the very first thing is I have selected, you know, things with colors. So this box here, you know, anything that you can see on the screen, I have selected, and then within Affinity, all I've done is I've then added that color to this swatch. So we can easily just we go in up here, you say add new swatch, sorry, and you name it, and then literally you just click this add button here and it adds whichever color, that's great, to the palette. And I've just completely just sort of said, right, okay, so I've got all of these colors. Now, some of these colors are quite light. Most of them are actually what I would call sort of action colors. So the pink, the yellow, the red, the green, they're all probably going to stay. I might want a slightly different tint of that for different apps, but in reality, they're not there. They're not really they're not brand colors. So then it's in Affinity, once again, so like websites with style sheets, you can create what they call global colors. So you can see up here, this is add global color. So where does that, well, that goes into the document, and just scroll up here and select document, you can see I've got 3 global colors. Now, in reality, because I've now gone through all of these, anything that's got a color, I have then applied, I've named the color Uber App Purple Primary 1, and I'm thinking that what I'm going to do is create some CSS variables in the app so that then, we can do that. So then in the future, what I can do is I can take, so this is colors, by the way, we're working on, so I can literally right click that, I can say edit the fill, and I can just select any color I like, Right, let's just move it straight to red so we can just see the difference. And we can see that a lot of the core elements, so this red circle here, the lines, everything that I have made into this global color has turned red. And therefore, what I'm thinking is I can then take this global color and I can say edit the fill. I can move that across over to the red. Just wait for that to kick in. And we can see that things like these background colors would all change to red. So obviously I don't want it to look like that for the thing, but it's just, you know, just a demonstration. So then you can start changing all your colors on brand, and then I can start using this color scheme. I can utilize the sizing and spacing. That's the next thing. So the next thing I did was I realized, obviously this is great, I mean it looks fantastic, but the problem is that I want other elements. I want form items in my design, and these don't, there's none of the designs that come with Philo are form items, so I need to start creating things for myself. Now the very first thing that I'm going to be creating for my app is a login page. So I've already started this, and this is what made me think, right, I need to demonstrate what I've done. So in here I've taken the structure that I've just created in the dashboard document and just done save as 01 login. So all of this information is now into my login page. Now I'm only halfway through this, but as we can see, I've copied a button across here from the other document, and I've colored it as part of the colors which are available within here. I like green for go kind of thing, red for stop. I've copied across the header, navigation, text, and I've copied across the sort of background boxes that come in here, and I've within one of the designs there is a search box, so I've copied that across, and that's going to become the basis for my input fields. So everything, and I've copied across the login and everything that comes in. So now I'm starting to actually create a proper mock-up utilizing the assets which I have taken from the original designs. So on this side of things I've created, I'm just going to get me out the way over here, I've created a few templatey type things. Now, so down here, a totally green box, not going to be used at all. This is a guide for me, hence the kind of so technically we've got bright colors in the design as well, but I like to use the sort of colors. And then I've also got these two boxes. Now I worked out within the other designs that we had a situation where we had our padding was 32 pixels, roughly, kind of. When I looked through the Philo stuff, actually there was quite a lot of inconsistency. So what I've done is I've gone, right, well that's great, but I want everything to be consistent. So and it just shows because I've just resized this box previously before doing the video, and so we can see that I know the submit button, and I'm just going to nudge that to the left. I see my mock-ups, but I'm also making sure now that I have got the right padding and spacing on my layouts, because when I do the style sheets for the app, I can then just say things have a padding of 32 pixels, which is what this red box is. We can see that here. And then if it's a larger padding spacing, it seems that the spacing is a little bit different, and it's actually 60 pixels in between the top of a box and the content, and it's 50 pixels between the edge of the box on the sides to the content. So now I've got a structure in terms of my colors, and I've got a structure in terms of my padding and spacing, and then everything else I'm going to utilize the layouts and the assets that I've or I'm going to create my own assets. For example, this login box here, sorry, this one, we'll need to have a think about what happens with the input label, and what happens, you know, with in terms of spacing, and then what happens potentially if it goes to mobile and things like that. But we're nowhere near down that line at the minute. We're just going to get things on the page laid out so that it looks structurally sound. So hopefully that is a great follow-up to the first video. If you haven't watched the first video, do so. And in reality, all I'm going to be doing now is saying, right, I want a login mock-up, I want a registration page lock-up, I want a dashboard mock-up, I want for generic, and then what we will do is we will go into because a lot of these things are fairly standard nowadays, especially with software. You go into different business software and they're laid out very, very similarly. So in reality, if I'm happy with this layout, this login box and everything for one project, why would I not be happy, unless there was something specific that needed to be changed, to say, okay, well, actually for another project, I would like it to be actually 006699, which is my blue for another project. And everything changes to blue, and obviously I would change these other two colors as well to a bluish tint, and we're good to go in terms of changing the look and feel of the app, just to get the project going, started in a quick and timely manner, and see what's on the page, what the user journeys and user experience is. Then we can add design and things like that on top afterwards if needs be. Great, thanks for watching. If you like the video, please do click the like button, subscribe, it would be great, and thank you for watching.